Hello. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the years leading up to the founding of the Sioux City Art Center in 1938. The Society of Fine Arts, which led into the Art Center, was founded in the 1914s, and we've talked about Alice Lawler's role in getting it off the ground and helping it succeed. Gus Nelson's role in teaching the first classes taught by the Society during the 1920s. And today we're going to talk about another early artist in Sioux City who became very well known, very successful, and had a curious run-in with one of our other Sioux City artists. And this is Ary Stillman. Like Gus Nelson, Ary was born in Europe and came over as a boy. He was born in what is now Belarus. At that time it was Russia. And he was born in 1891 and came over when he was a teenager to Sioux City. And like Gus, he had an interest in art. He had studied art as a boy when he was still in Russia. But he didn't necessarily have this goal of becoming an artist. He was working in a downtown jewelry store and decided to try his luck and go off to New York, where he studied at the National Academy of Design and the Art Students League. And shortly after he finished studying at Art Students League, he decided to do what a lot of artists did from the United States, and that is travel to Paris. And while most artists would go to Paris, maybe to study at one of the academies or to be sort of a cultural tourist, try to meet artists, see what's going on in Paris, and try to glean a little bit of that before they came back to the United States. But Ary actually lived there for many years during the 1920s and became very successful. He exhibited at Parisian galleries. And while he was there, it was in 1927, he was introduced to a fellow artist, another American, and that turned out to be Gus Nelson. And it's not clear to us that Ary and Gus knew each other from their days in Sioux City. They were separated by 7 years in age, and although they both had an inkling towards art, it was probably never publicly put out there that these are two budding young artists. So we think it's likely that they did not know each other when they grew up. They just happened to meet in Paris. But they quickly figured out who each other was, that they had this amazing parallel in their lives. And so Ary invited Gus over to his apartment and studio, and what came out of that visit is one of our favorite portraits in the collection. It's right back here over my right shoulder, and it is a portrait of Gus wearing a red beret. And we just think it's a great story that the two of these happen to have met in such a large city where there were so many artists working at the same time. So Gus came back to the United States, of course, and continued on his way. Ary stayed in Europe for a couple more years before coming back to the United States. And once he got here, he continued to be successful. He was working in New York for a while. In 1941, there was a large exhibition of his work that was organized, and it actually toured the country. It included this portrait of Gus Nelson. And we know that the portrait was shown as part of the exhibition in places like the Academy of Arts in Pennsylvania, St. Louis Art Museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, Seattle Art Museum, all before it came to the relatively new Sioux City Art Center in 1941. And at that point, of course, it has stayed in Sioux City for the rest of its existence. But had such an amazing turn of events to have come into play, and then an amazing journey on its way to Sioux City, that it's one of our favorite stories of the early days of the Sioux City Art Center.